And we are live. So here we are, episode 3 of HBO's series The Last of Us. I'm here with the Gore-Aphobe. And the Gore-Aphobe and I are going to be covering every episode of this season. This is the third, and so what's going to happen is after every episode, immediately you'll find us in the stream or not long after, like we are right now, to review what we just saw and watched. And like I said before we went on, I hope my voice holds up because I'm in the middle of battling COVID. So I hope that my voice box holds up, but we'll power through it.
Cool.
So thank you again for joining me. I appreciate it as always. Give me your initial feedback, initial thoughts, feelings, just general overview of this episode. What did you think?
I wasn't expecting anything to happen in this episode. And like I said before, my son had played the game and he knew what to expect and what the differences were going to be and everything. And of course, he told me throughout the episode. I wasn't expecting much of anything that happened in it. It veered toward the melodrama a little, but I think that that's for character basis because you notice Joel mixed in throughout. Because this one, in case people don't know, it hasn't seen it, doesn't have a whole lot of Joel and Ellie in it.
Yeah, they're not in it a great deal. They're in it. They're like bookends. They're at the very beginning and they're at the very end.
Right.
And then in the middle, you get introduced to two new characters, Bill and Frank. And the episode is largely about them. This is an episode that runs about 80, 85 minutes long. And the second episode, almost as long as the first one. And I didn't know what to expect. I was told, maybe it was a little blurb I saw somewhere, that episode 3 was going to reveal a lot, so on and so forth. So I was expecting, kind of an actiony kind of episode. And that's not really what we got.
No.
I think it did veer a little bit into melodrama, but let's get into it. My initial, I'm not exactly. I don't know how to feel about it necessarily because I don't have a frame of reference for accuracy from the video game. So just watching it on its own, I'm not sure how I feel about it. But let's get into it a little bit. It pretty much picks up just where we left off last week with the death of Tess. Tess sacrifices herself to save Ellie and Joel when the brainiac things, the zombies or whatever.
Mushroom head.
The mushroom heads, that's it. The mushroom heads are coming at them en masse, and she essentially sacrifices herself, even though she'd been bit. She's going to die and become one of them, and rather than do that, she just sort of sacrifices herself in a big explosion, and Ellie and Joel are able to go their own way. It starts off where they're still kind of together, Ellie and Joel, I guess decompressing from what's happened.
Right.
And I just, I feel bad for Joel because he's clearly not comfortable necessarily with Ellie at all, or yet, right. Or he's somewhat comfortable with her. I mean, but you can tell, he's dying inside. Like Tess has just died. He can't vent it anywhere. He has to keep it all bottled up, and keep his game face on. Right. You can tell he and Tessa have been together for forever. I don't know if she's his real wife or his common law wife or, his partner or whatever term that they use nowadays. But you can tell, they were a team. And now she's dead. And, he's got, I just felt bad for him.
Yeah. He it shows where it goes back to where they got together at least not too long after that. At least what is this? Because it flashes back, so it shows them together all the way back in 2010 at least.
Yeah. So you're looking at a good 13 years because we're this present day for the series is 2023. So it's right up here with the current times. And this started in 2003. And so, yeah, suddenly she's just gone, and he's forced to just keep on marching with this girl. It's a shame because, like I said before last week, all of this for a fucking car battery.
Yeah, so he could check on his brother. Yeah,
Yeah, all of this for a fucking car battery, and you're just like, oh man, this is awful. Um, Now, at the same time, like they don't lay it on overly thick with the. Well, okay, I spoke too soon. When it comes to Tess and Joel, they're not laying it on overly thick with the emotions.
right.
I mean, that's just something I sort of intuited. But they don't lean heavy in that direction.
Yeah.
I mean, it's tragic, and but Joel, he's real stony faced. But then Ellie comes right at him with something, and she's like, "Don't blame me for something that isn't my fault. You guys wanted to do this for a car
Yeah.
battery, And he's not blaming her, but you could see where over time his mind might shift to that,
Yeah.
So
If
she
it
just sort
wasn't
of
for you, yeah. If it wasn't
yeah,
for you, if we wasn't doing this and helping get you there, she might still be alive. Yeah. Just
yeah, and
what the human brain does.
and she just sort of nips it in the bud, which I actually didn't mind.
Right.
Because Ellie is a character. I mean, I don't dislike her, but I kind of like her. And she probably is what a kid would be who spent her whole life in some sort of apocalypse. There's not a lot of open heartedness here.
Right.
Everybody's kind of salty. Everybody in this show is kind of salty, and I imagine we're probably going to meet some characters that are a lot worse than anyone's we've seen so far.
Yeah.
They keep hinting to it, and we got a little glimpse of it tonight, but not too much. So they're continuing to explore because they're trying to get to these characters, Bill and Frank, and they come across something that I hadn't seen before, that I didn't think I would see again, and I don't know if you'll know what this is, but Cumberland Farms.
Okay.
Do you know what a Cumberland Farms is?
Not really, no.
Cumberland Farms, at least where I was, in hold on a second. Cumberland Farms was a major convenience store of sorts around here when back in the day, before the days. Where are you in the U.S.? If you don't mind me asking.
I'm here in Indiana.
Okay, so yeah, you wouldn't know about this, but it was a pretty major thing, a store that was around in lots of different locations when I was growing up, and I
Like
never
a
thought
Circle
that
K
I
or something? Like a Circle K type thing or 7-Eleven type shit or
7-Eleven. Nowadays we have Wawa. Do you know what that is?
no. Around here we have Circle K's and Get and
7-Eleven.
Go's, things like that.
Okay. Well, Cumberland Farms was a major food chain, a major convenience store chain around here, and I never thought that I'd see one again. But I forget that this is taking place very close to Boston.
Right.
Yeah, we're seeing it quite a bit. I'm trying to cue this up because I forgot to set this up before the stream. But they end up going in the store. And why don't you take it for a second? Take us through what happened.
Well, they went in just looking around, trying to scavenge and see what all's going on. Well, the thing that I thought was funny and what my son brought up was, she goes in the back and he's checking on her. Hey, what are you doing? Oh, I'm fine. She goes back here and she goes to lift that up, and when she drops down in that little cubby, that's one thing that my son said that Ellie wouldn't have done without Joel in the game. Because because Joel's telling her, everybody's going to scavenge for everything. You're not going to find anything else. And then she goes down there and she happens to run across a box of tampons. But he said she would not have done that.
It gets me in this show. Ellie's kind of reckless. But then again, Ellie is 14.
Yeah.
And she's 14, who's never been outside the QZ. And so far, with what Ellie has been doing, I've been okay with it. Because
Right.
it's a kind of recklessness that every time she does something stupid, she kind of gets comeuppance a little bit. Like
Right.
last week when they were wading through the water and she starts
Mm-hmm.
playing with the piano, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden like a dead body like flies up in her face. She's like, oh shit. So like every time she's done something really stupid, it's obviously shown her a reason why she shouldn't. And so I've been okay with her stupidity so far.
Yeah.
So far at least. That's the way I've been able to look at it.
Yeah.
But she goes and yeah, she goes down into. But even when she dropped down into that ditch, I'm like, well, that's a little fucking much.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And my son was immediately like, because I asked him, I said, "What was Ellie this dumb in the game?" And he said, "No, she wasn't."
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, she's just yeah. Like I said, she's just fucking reckless. But you know, so far it hasn't been too bad. At least what I've seen. Or anything that's too egregious.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
at least so far. Hold on a second. I'm trying to bring the episode up like we had last week. All right, here we go. I got it. Here we go. Yep.
I like how I did like how she started asking him, started confiding in him and asking him what it was like before and how it got started. So I thought that was pretty cool shit to kind of add in there. How it got in on Friday. It on Friday the 23rd. It got into food and flour and different little things here. By
Yeah,
Monday, everybody was gone.
I thought that was interesting that they used. Yeah, they explained it that way. That
Yeah.
it was the food. Um,
Yeah.
it got into the grains and the breads that everyday people ate, and you know,
And enough of
so
it. Yeah.
yeah, just so instantly it was too late.
Yeah.
Like by the time they realized that something was wrong, it was already too late.
In one weekend. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you know by then the biting had started. You know, now this episode didn't have the creep factor that that last episode did that started off in Jakarta.
Mm-hmm.
This episode had a completely different tone.
Yeah.
Because if you remember correctly, you know the army military takes that scientists and she cuts open that body, and then
Right.
she tells them she's like bomb the whole city. Just start bombing now, kill everybody, you know, and kill me. You know, can you please just take me back? I want to be with my family. You know, because
Right.
she realizes this is kind of the end.
The mycologist.
Yeah, this didn't have that kind of tone. But I mean, she comes down to, you know, you tell the story about the grains, and yeah, Cumberland Farms is a hold on a second. Let me get rid of that. Off. Okay. Boom. Oh, no, definitely don't want to do that. But in many ways, she's still just a damn kid. So I guess they're not portraying her as this like small adult. They're here in this televised in the television series. She's a kid. She wants to play video games. You know,
Yeah.
she's stunned by you know being in a car for the first time. You
Yeah.
know, she has all these questions, and so she's not really a survivalist. She's almost kind of naive.
Which would
Are
make
you?
sense.
Yeah, I was going to say, are you okay with that?
Yeah, it makes sense. Like I was a little taken back when my son told me that she wouldn't have made that mistake that early because that makes me think, what does the game start out right when she's already knows how to take care of herself? Or
I would imagine it probably does.
yeah, because I mean it makes sense in the show that she would fuck up and she would do stupid shit because she's only 14.
She's only 14. She's never been out of the QZ. You know, she's not involved in any of these black market trades or anything like that. So whatever she's known as known, but you know, within like the green zone, you know,
Yeah.
as a term we might recognize as that. She's not used to living out in the Wild West. So she's seeing all these things for the first time through the eyes of a kid, and yeah, she just wants to, it's like a little kid. You have to touch everything, you know, it's like that. So they go down into and I guess this was something I had never considered. Yeah, she goes down into the basement, and yeah, she finds fucking Tampax.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I mean, because that's what I was thinking. I'm like, what the fuck is down there that is that fucking important? And I was like, oh, I guess that would be important. I mean, I would give a fuck about it. You would give a fuck about it. But just the
Yeah.
same, I guess for a woman, that would be like they'd be like
Gold.
hitting the lottery. Yeah, that'd be like hitting the fucking lottery.
All right.
So so be it. I'm like, okay, I'm wrong about that one. No problem.
That was gruesome, wasn't it? That dude was gruesome.
Yeah. So she finds a fucking mushroom head crushed pretty much from the upper chest down in this fucking rock pile. And what I thought was interesting was that, how can I put this? She starts cutting him.
Yeah. I think she
Like,
wanted to see what was going to come out of his head if she cut it.
Yeah, or if there was any kind of reaction, to pain or anything like that.
Right.
And yeah, that was really fucking grotesque. She just starts fucking slicing him. And it doesn't get any response. So she just fucking impales him on a fucking.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Pulls a Walking Dead and stabs him in the head. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just really fucking foul.
And she did it with like zero. I mean, from the beginning of that scene when she goes to look at him to when she stabs him, like her face does not change. I mean, it's just like he's completely cold about the whole thing.
Yeah, so maybe you can see which direction she's going to head in. That she just might become that kind of stone cold fucking. She might be that stone cold bitch. Before it's all said and done. She just might turn out to be. But yeah, I mean, this is the only mushroom head we see the entire episode. So I mean, very, very different from last week. And they keep fucking going.
We get to see the red hoodie for the first time that she's known for. My son like that. He was like, yes, and I was like, what, the red hoodie? And he was like, yeah, because we've all seen her in that red hoodie, and
Yeah.
So yeah, he's definitely a fanboy for the game. So he's calling every single thing. We get a couple of new characters here in flashback, which I thought was interesting. They went down a way I did not expect.
Well, who are we talking about here?
Talking about Bill and Frank.
Oh, Bill and Frank. Okay. So, well, before that, we should talk about another time when she flouts what fucking Joel tells her to do. Hey, let's cut through here. Is there something up there? Yeah, I don't want you to see that. So, of course, like some dumb, glib fucking kid, she's like, oh, well, then I definitely have to see, that sort of thing. And it just turns out to be a bunch of fucking it turns out to be a mass grave. And I thought that was kind of interesting that they were showing people like all these fucking dead bodies, and that the government had basically started just murdering people.
Yeah, if there wasn't enough room or anything like that, or if they wasn't sure, the way they looked at it is, hey, the less people there is, the less chance there is of getting sick.
Yep, one less infected. One more dead body is one less infected, and you're just like, fuck, that's fucking harsh, man. But yeah, they're not fucking around with this. The government wasn't fucking around. So, like here, you can see we're about 18 minutes in. 82-minute episode. You can see on the timer we're about 18 minutes into the episode, and then the whole episode fucking flips.
Yeah.
And we get introduced to the character of Bill. who I instantly fucking liked.
Yeah, yeah.
Bill, I mean, they talked about how they tricked people into evacuating the small towns, so on and so forth. Bill is one of those people who refused, I guess, to evacuate.
He's a
And
survivalist.
yeah, he's a survivalist, so he refuses to evacuate. He's got a basement underneath his basement, or some sort of adjacent basement. He's got like a bunker.
Yeah, it's very cool. He had like the dresser here, and you can see where when he lifted it up, it was just so no one could notice it. That was cool as hell. So that right there was, I immediately knew then. I was like, that's a survival.
Yeah, yeah. So he's got the survivalist thing going, but then everybody leaves. So I thought it was just great. He had racks and racks of guns. He had huge things of like sulfuric acid. And then just like you go upstairs and he had this enormous wine rack. And you're like, what the fuck? He just like had this complete fucking setup for himself. And he just proceeds to commandeer the entire town because the town has been abandoned. And he's the only one that's fucking left. And this for me was like the coolest thing. This was the coolest part of the whole episode. And he's got that shitty Chevy S10. He turns on the gas so like he can have natural fucking gas to cook with. I mean, he's just a great fucking character.
He's got water. He's got everything. Immediately goes and ransacks the Home Depot and all that kind of stuff. Comes back and gets all his shit going, so he can just live in the same comfort he has.
Yeah,
and
he's
what got me
filling up
about him was is I think he was kind of like an antisocial character anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when that shit kicked off, he was already underground when he heard it going on. So you know what I mean?
Yeah. And he was like he had those, he just got all the fuel. Like he just grabbed everything that wasn't nailed down and drove it all back to his place. I mean, here he is. You're in the middle of the zombie apocalypse. He's making a fucking Pittsburgh steak.
Hell yeah.
I mean, and he's got a nice fucking glass of wine to go with it. I mean, he's just fucking living. And I think, what was interesting here, and this is why I figured, oh shit, this is going to be the ally that Ellie and Joel are going to be visiting.
That's what I was thinking.
Okay, this character is going to be, a major part of the show, because I think he's that actor from Parks and Recreation, but I can't remember his name.
It's hold on a second.
The real Trump conservative guy.
Nick Offerman.
Yeah. He's in Parks and Recreation, but I recognize him from that and some of my friends' memes. But I mean, he just basically commandeers the whole town. And what I thought was interesting that they did a couple of times, they time jump really fast.
Yeah.
Like apparently he had the whole run of the town to himself for like 4 years.
Right.
So I didn't get it at first. When one day, I think we saw a couple of mushroom heads like run. He's got like tripwires and cameras, and he's got electrified fences, and he's got like flamethrowers, like ready to go at like a moment's notice. He's got the whole thing set up. And I think at one point what ends up happening is he ends up setting off a tripwire and he catches someone in one of his little traps. And so this guy, Frank, comes out of the fucking trap, which he quickly, fucking tests and checks out and, does all this kind of crap. And like initially, I thought that Frank was like really fucking intrusive.
Mm-hmm.
Cause he's like, I want to, like, give me something to eat. And like, I figured initially I thought he was going to, no, wait, it's Frank. Yeah. Okay.
Frank.
I thought Bill was going to shoot him.
Yeah. I thought Frank was someone sent in to infiltrate or something like that to begin with.
Yeah. Like a scout.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he was a scout. Yeah. He was coming up from Baltimore. They were trying to make it to Boston to the QZ. They said Baltimore had fallen apart. He was one of 10. There's nobody left in, his party, but I thought it was all a lie.
he's so easygoing and he's just not worried about it. You know what I mean? He just gives off this vibe like I don't trust him.
Yeah, it was a little weird, but I was like, okay, whatever. And then Bill is clearly, well, clearly, but clearly fucking tweaked because he probably hasn't spoken to anybody in 4 years. So he's a little tweaked too. But then, sure enough, he invites himself to lunch and he invites himself for the whole fucking shebang, and they end up having a nice meal, this, that, and the other. And next thing you know, they're a fucking couple.
Yeah.
They're
They
a
joined
fucking couple. Yeah,
Linda
you're like,
Ronstadt. To Linda Ronstadt, they became a couple.
that's right. Yeah, over Linda Ronstadt, of all fucking people, Linda Ronstadt in the apocalypse fucking survives. I love Linda Ronstadt. Don't misunderstand me, but Jesus Christ. But so, I mean, that sort of time jumps again.
Yeah.
And so they end up becoming a couple. And then I think it jumps another 4 years where they've sort of put a life together inside this house. And Frank wants to start inviting people into the house. And I'm thinking, that's a really fucking stupid idea.
Yeah, so did Bill. Bill was like, excuse me?
Yeah, but, I guess, you can't really stop someone unless you're going to put a bullet in him, which clearly he's not going to do. And that's how they end up meeting Joel and Ellie.
Joel and Tess.
Joel and Tess, forgive me. So next thing you know, they're all fucking having dinner over at the house. And you can see, like, Bill and Joel are like not thrilled about this, but Tess and Frank are like having a grand old fucking time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's this relationship really that becomes the bulk of the episode, the Frank and Bill relationship, which ends up really carrying on for damn near 20 years, probably almost as long as Tess and Joel's.
Maybe even longer. I mean, the only thing we've been proving is that Joel was with Tess since 2010, but those guys have been together since 2007. Yeah,
2007. So it's a long. I mean, the whole episode is basically about their 16-year relationship. And they end up surviving, an attack because Joel warns Bill about raiders. That raiders are coming. Here's the thing. Well, what did your son say about how this differed from the video game? Did he give any specifics?
Well,
if he didn't, they didn't. But
well, from what I got was it didn't insinuate the homosexuality thing. I mean, it insinuated it, but it didn't make it obvious. I guess. But they did live there together, and they were together, and all that. And let me see the next part was
like Bert and Ernie.
Yeah, some sort of a partnership is the way the game did it.
They're a team. They're a team.
Somehow, yeah. And then the very end of it was a little different too. I'll go ahead and let you do that first before I get into that.
Okay. Well, I mean, basically, what ends up happening is, I mean, they just end up getting old. I mean, there's not too much to get into. They survived some raids.
What kind of disease did he have? Do you know? Was it Parkinson's? Was it? I mean,
I think it was either. Hold on a second, because what ends up happening is, you find out, many years later, go by, and next thing you know, Frank is in a wheelchair, and I'm assuming that it's either ALS or MS or something like that. They essentially grow old together.
Yeah.
They essentially grow old together. So, I mean, this started at about 20 minutes into the episode, and now you can see we're about the 50-minute mark. So about 30, more than 30 minutes, I'd say about 40 minutes, half the episode, or more than half, probably is dedicated to this relationship.
2/3 at least, yeah.
Yeah, and here's the thing. If you're not a video game person, like who has that frame of reference for comparison, I'm not sure this is why anybody would have tuned into this episode.
Right.
You see my point? Like
Right,
if you're
yeah.
just here to watch Mushroom Heads, I'm not sure. I'm not saying it's done poorly or anything like that. I'm just saying I'm not 100% because I haven't even really started to veer into the melodrama yet.
Well, yeah, my thing was I didn't see the point. See, now I would have understood it a little bit better if one of those two characters would have carried on and met
Yeah,
and met Joel and continued on. Then it would have gave you that whole point of why you gave him that backstory. But since
right.
neither one of them made it through it, see, that's one thing that I was going to say was different. Is I guess Frank in the game, Frank commits suicide. He hangs himself. And
Okay.
Bill is still alive and continues on for a while.
See,
I
that
guess
makes sense.
so. That's a major difference.
Because and then they pull the rug out from you under that because what happens is Frank wakes up one morning and says today's going to be the last day.
Right.
Like, and you get that. Like, people get that. You know, you have prolonged illness and you have pain, and you know sometimes people just you don't have any quality of life anymore. And maybe he figures like every day. Like, I get that every day after this is just going to be steadily worse.
Right.
You know, so while I'm reasonably intact,
Quality
let
of
me.
going, yeah.
Yeah, and I've done pretty much all I'm going to do, and it hasn't been too bad. I've lived out the apocalypse like this.
But don't want to take it any further, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Before you really start to go downhill, he decides that, okay, I'm going to end it today. Now, where it starts to really veer off into the melodrama is all the requests of the last day.
Yeah.
And he's like, I want us to get married. I want us to go to the boutique and we're going to buy things to wear and we're going to get married and you're going to cook me a nice dinner. And then, you're going to crush all the pills that I have into this wine glass. I'm going to drink all the wine and then you're going to carry me to bed and hold me while I die. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? What the fuck does this have to do with mushroom heads, man?
And another thing is, what a burden to put on Bill, man.
Yeah, he like destroys his life. I'm like, you're just ruining this man's life. Like, if you want to go off quietly somewhere and put pills in your wine, like I would get that. Or like you said in the video game, he wants to hang himself. Like, I get that. And leave a note. It's been great. Or even what he said. Not every day has been great, but the most good days I've had have been with you.
But don't aid me and then hold me while I'm dying. Yeah,
Yeah, you're just like you're destroying this other guy, and I'm like, wow, that's what I wrote in the notes. This is really leans into melodrama here. So, I mean, that's how he went. I mean, I'm like, wow, that is really fucking dramatic. Holy shit. So, I mean, it goes and goes and goes and goes. And then what I didn't realize was that fucking Bill loaded his own wine up.
Right.
He loaded his own wine up. Hold on a second. We got someone in the chat here over in Twitch. Pelican, what's up, man? What's happening? So, I mean, I'm not, like you said, I'm not exactly sure why.
There's got to be a reason, right? I mean, there's got to be a reason, like it's going to switch back or something. Something's going to come out. There has to be a reason why they did that. I
don't think so. I don't think so. I think the whole point of the whole arc of the story, and maybe to them this makes sense. It happens a lot in modern content. They'll do it all just for that suicide note at the end. Because Joel and Ellie because they go off themselves and then they go off to bed, and then Joel and Ellie, we finally snap back to Joel and Ellie, who come back into the story much later, and they find the note, and it's basically, well, I was in charge of this person, I took care of this person, I protected him, and now that's over with, so I can die now, this sort of thing. But that's your job, to like provide and protect and do all these sorts of things. And I honestly think that we won't hear anything more about Frank or Bill.
Yeah. Well,
I think they ran that. Go ahead.
Well, I was just saying it could have also been to aid us in seeing where they get a little more of their arsenal. Maybe they get, because that's where they went to get the battery. Right. I'm assuming because that's what Tess, I guess what Tess told him last episode or whatever is go see Frank and Bill. And at that time we didn't know who that was, but maybe that's it. That's where they get more guns. Maybe that's because it hasn't finished that thought yet. I don't think, but maybe that's it.
Well, I don't know. I think that would be preferable in terms of good storytelling.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that that's exactly why that's happening, but we shall see. And then they end up just getting the car going. They get the truck and they load up and they're shipping out of town. And that's kind of how the episode ends.
Yeah, I love when it introduces Bill, how it introduces White Room by Cream.
Oh, yeah.
I had heard that song in forever, Cream.
Yeah. The Bill character started out really strong.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, it just morphed into something else. And I don't know. I feel like you wasted the character.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen at least him carry on. I thought that was the whole point of it. I thought that's why it was coming, because we knew they were coming somewhere. I assumed that Ellie and Joel were coming there. That's what I assumed. And then with Frank wanting to die, I thought that would be perfectly, and then they would have to talk Bill into coming with them. Hey, there's nothing else here for you.
Yeah, they would sort of repurpose him.
Mm-hmm.
He would have a new purpose, or he had died not too long ago, where suddenly, he's just looking for a new purpose, or maybe he's suicidal now or something like that. But no, he's just gone. And it's a shame, because I think, like you said, Nick Offerman is a great actor, or he's a really good actor. But it's just the story arc's kind of whack here.
He does a good job. He's so stiff, and so what I mean. Even in the scene where they're getting into bed together, I mean, he looked like he took a piece of coal in his ass and turned it into a diamond. He's like, I mean, this guy is super tense. Yeah.
Holy shit. Well, I mean, it's different from his role in Parks and Recreation. That's for fucking sure. So
I've never watched that.
Well, I've seen a couple episodes, and he's pretty fucking funny. But who knows? Maybe he never had the experience with a man climbing on top of him before, so maybe he didn't have to act. But what the fuck?
I guess one of them is actually gay. I don't remember which one he said, but my son likes to do it. He likes to go back and check out things to help me out with my streams and stuff.
Okay,
and one of them is actually gay. I don't remember.
Okay. It'd be funny if it was Nick Offerman. Yeah, you never can't tell. What the fuck?
But hey, teeth done.
Yeah. It's all good. It's all good. I mean no disrespect.
No, of course.
I'm not sure. Like this episode took a wild fucking detour this week, and the first episode was tight, man. First episode was tight. That second episode, it wasn't bad. Starting off with the creep right away in Jakarta. And then, them getting all the way through. And then you got your first look at the mushroom head. We talked about that. And then, all of a sudden, boom, Tess is gone. Now, I thought that last episode went fast.
Yes.
And now this, it's honestly thrown me for a loop. And this is why I haven't, wanted to say that, I'm endorsing the entire show. I've wanted to keep it episode by episode. Because I didn't know that this was going to happen, but it definitely threw me for a loop from the previous episodes. Fuck.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know.
I figured you'd look at this one a little differently. I was sitting there thinking while I was watching, thinking, yeah, he's gonna find this a little too melodramatic because I know how you are. I know how you know. I just know how your taste goes. I figured it would throw you off a little bit.
I want to see some, you know, I want to see some mushroom heads. You know,
I'm sure we will. We will.
yeah. Well, we'll see what happens next week. I'll be tuning in. I'll be tuning in, but I'll also be checking now, you know, for like weird fucking turns in the story arc.
Of course, yeah.
You know, because you know, are you going to be introducing? I'm sure they must be introducing other characters.
Yeah. I thought that's where we were starting. That threw me off because I just didn't see the point in bringing them in and devoting a whole almost hour and a half episode to them, and then both of them be dead at the end. That did kind of fuck with me. Yeah.
Because I'd say out of an hour and 20 minutes, they put almost an hour into Bill and Frank, and then they killed them off.
There's got to be a reason.
They're not fucking coming back. I don't think so. The more that I watch and really pay attention to these kinds of things, the more I see that they make decisions sometimes that just make no fucking sense. But HBO is usually a little bit better, it depending on the show. Depending on the show. So, I mean, well, I guess more will be revealed next week when we get to it. But yeah, I wasn't terribly. I was a little disappointed here. I was a little disappointed.
Great relationship. Yeah, I mean, it was a great relationship.
It was a great relationship, and that wasn't even a bad story. What happened between Bill? It's just a weird fucking insert. It's not a bad story. Like if you were just like to make some vignette episode, you know, like at the end of did you watch Netflix Sandman? Neil Gaiman's Sandman? Oh, well, it's on Netflix, the first season of Sandman. And they changed a few things around that I didn't necessarily like. They made Constantine a woman. And I was like, what the fuck? Okay, that doesn't make any sense. But all right. But at the end, in the last episode, they also had these additional like one additional episode, I think. And it was like an hour long, and it was like 3 20-minute unrelated episodes. There's just these little vignette short stories. And so I could see something like that, you know, where you just have this little side story about two guys, you know, or two people, you know, who survived through the apocalypse until, you know, they decided they didn't want to go any further. Like I would get that. But this in here, it just seems, like I said.
Well, maybe it'll surprise you.
I could be wrong. I you know, and these days I'm always it's always a pleasant surprise when I'm wrong. So that's good. That'll be good. And we'll see what happens next.
Huh? I noticed in this, and it's completely off. I've noticed in every little town, and in every town, you notice every one of them has a main street. I noticed that there's a main street in this too, except for my hometown. It's the only town I've ever seen that doesn't have a main street at all. It is the town where I'm from. Every other town I've ever seen, no matter how small, no how big, it has a main street.
You mean your hometown actually does not have a main street? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, it has a main street, but it doesn't have a street called Main.
Called Main Street. Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah. My little dinky town here doesn't have a main street either. So, all right.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, it's probably just some cliche thing that they do in storytelling. Yeah, you got the same AI writing stories. Well, shit.
Where's Tommy going to come?
Huh?
Where's Tommy going to come from? I wonder. That's what I'm curious about. When are they going to run across Tommy, and what the hell's going to be going on?
I don't see that happening until we get to the end of the season. Now, my understanding was that, and maybe you can check with your son about this, and we can talk about it next week, that there was some controversy between the first video game and then when they got to The Last of Us 2.
Okay.
I don't know what the controversy was, but I've heard it in larger streams, and I've tried to avoid the conversation generally so as not to give myself spoilers.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, apparently a lot of people were bent out of shape about some things that were happening in the second video game. And there's been some question as to whether the show is actually going to, quote unquote, go there. but I don't know what going there literally means.
Right, and I won't let him tell me. I will
Okay,
let him tell me as we're going because I don't.
per
Because
episode.
I wanted to kind of open up as we're going too. I don't want to know too much about what went on there, just in case it
Well,
is close.
I saw what I saw. There's a trailer at the end of the episode for
Yes,
episode 4. And it didn't look like much was happening. Maybe we'll see. I guess we'll see.
but it looks like there is a little bit of the thriller poking its head out, though. Maybe you know what I mean. It looks like a little more intense, maybe with a little more the mushroom
I hope,
heads or maybe scavengers or whatever.
I hope so. I hope so because that's what we want, especially if you're in the first episode, I mean, the first season, the
Right.
first season. So okay, we'll see. We'll see. Well, is there anything that you wanted to point out that you think we missed about this episode?
No, not really. It was basically just about them two and what we expected from it and what we didn't get so far and
Yeah.
how we connected to Joel and how Ellie had no idea about any of these people, but now she does, and now they have a vehicle and off to find Tommy, I guess.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see how they do next week. Um, I'm still going to tune in. You know, I'm far from throwing in the towel on this, but
Oh yeah.
we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. And like I said, I'm glad that I'm going episode by episode with it. So,
Yes.
all right, man. Well, it's a little after 11 here, and I think that's pretty much it for this episode. My thanks to the Gore-Aphobe for once again stopping by and hanging around. My voice is starting to die now.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, always, and we'll do it again next week. We'll be back for episode 4. We will continue these immediately after each episode drops, 9 p.m. Eastern time. So say an hour after that, Gore and I will be in the stream reviewing the episode. Hopefully, I'll have fully shaken off this COVID by then, and I'll have my voice back. So my thanks to Gore-Aphobe, and all the very best, brother.
Cool.
You take it
Take it
easy,
easy, man.
and I'll see you in the next one.
All right, man. Have a good one.
Peace.